This definitely was a movie.
Y les aseguro que esta mesa, por diseño y por su nivel, les va a cambiar la vida a mejor.
Drive-by movies, you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is Blaise.
And I'm James.
And this week we're talking The Coffee Table.
Tú estás por la mesita, ¿en serio? Te estás pasando, ¿eh?
The Coffee Table is the thriller that has gotten a lot of people talking about how disturbing it is on TikTok. It's about Jesus and Maria, who are a couple going through a difficult time in their relationship. Nevertheless, they have just become parents. To shape their new life, they decide to buy a new coffee table, a decision that will change their existence. And, seems like quite a simple premise. Seems like it could be a short film premise. This movie easily could have made a pretty good, compelling 25-30 minute short film, but what it does for 90 minutes instead is just keeps you on edge and just be like, what the heck, do something else. But I found out about this movie earlier this summer. I don't know if anyone knows that guy on TikTok. I don't know his name. I don't follow him, but he's always showing up on my feed. But it's some guy with an accent, and he's always very close to the camera like this. It's like, guys, I just watched the most disturbing film I have ever seen, and this movie was on there, and now I see what the hype was. Disturbing, yes, but it's really not all that bad when I've, the sadness and Cannibal Holocaust of the movies that like got me. This movie didn't get me, but still pretty wild premise. What are your thoughts coming out of it?
I never feel like I hear people, and even when The Sadness came out, did we hear people say like this is one of the most messed up movies? But that was one where I watched and I'm like, this movie is just so messed up. Like I hated it because it was so messed up. It wasn't even like a movie I'm like, oh, this is so messed up. Like Speak No Evil, that was one where I was like, this is so like disturbing, but I thought it was really good. Where The Sadness, I felt like the opposite way. And then when it comes to The Coffee Table, this was one where I was like, okay, this is bad. It's not that bad. There's some weird choices that I feel like the director made, but I think you kind of said it earlier. This film would have made just a really good or better 25 to 30 minute longer short film. I feel like they just dragged this whole movie out for 90 minutes, which feels like it's pushing and overstaying its welcome. And then the ending is just like, okay, you could, like, I saw that coming a million miles away. How are you going to get out of this situation? But yet there's no real payoff. And I feel like this film really, it just felt like maybe if I saw this when I was like, first getting into like movies and not really seen too many disturbing films or horrific movies, and then, saw this movie, I'd be like, wow, that's a really dark, absurd, style movie. And maybe placed a little bit higher on the pedestal. But for me, I just really, you could miss me at The Coffee Table. I did not like this film at all. Yeah. I liked the intro. I liked that setup, and I felt like that was the short film there. The intro, especially the salesman, the guy who played like the coffee table salesman, was hilarious whenever he was on screen. But whenever basically he's not really there, which is, I would say, probably close to 90% of the movie, I feel like it is lacking. I feel like we're stuck with this kind of family and characters that are just dysfunctional, but not in a good way, and they're kind of like annoying, their actions and things that they're doing, to where I'm like, okay, it was really detracting from the experience of The Coffee Table for me.
I'd say overall though, like I guess I just had more fun with what this movie was putting me through, and that's what made me enjoy it. But, the more I sit and dwell on it, like, yeah, the characters, Jesus and Maria, are both, like, kind of unlikable in their own right. Both have, like, they're normal people, and, like, all normal people. I mean, I don't like most of the people I meet in life anyways, but that's just because I'm more of an introvert. But, these characters, just watching them from what we're seeing, like, you understand the way they react, kind of, but also they're just, not the most likable or well-rounded people in general. Like, they shouldn't be together almost, it seems like at times, but they're going through life, trying to make it work and stuff, but you can see that there's still some happiness there. But just overall, I guess there wasn't enough to make me really care about them or care about the situation that they've been put through, just because you're kind of thrown in. And yeah, I guess that's like one of the weaker aspects, because a lot is built up and there is a lot of like keys going into this movie that like could have made it like feel more grand, but feels very intimate. I guess I would have liked this movie better during quarantine season, because this easily could have been a quarantine film. But overall, like, it's just a low budget thriller. Like, this is just a smart premise that someone elongated for 90 minutes. And I wouldn't say overstood its welcome, but I'd say just a lot of stuff is introduced that doesn't really have any real payoff for the most part. Like, I'm satisfied watching this movie, but I can see why you disliked it overall, though.
Wouldn't even say that the premise was good. I would say that the premise was shocking. Like, that's what they had. They had a shocking premise, and they took, an everyday item that everyone has in their house and, made it a little bit twisted. But no, the coffee table is not possessed or anything. It just broke, essentially. And the comedy is that the salesman says that it's an unbreakable table. I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but there's a tragic accident that happens involving this unbreakable coffee table in which it breaks. And all of that is shot off screen, and that's obviously a creative choice. And I don't know if a lot of the film's, intense or suspenseful elements were kind of based on the fact that we didn't actually witness the event. We're outside of the room and you kind of hear everything happen. And then we're stuck with the main character's actions throughout the film and him dealing with what happened without facing the actual consequences. So that's where I felt like we spend like, I would say 70 minutes with this character kind of like tripping over what happened, but without actually accounting for or being accountable for what happened, or at least bringing it up to anyone. He's just trying to hide it, which was just very frustrating, because you're like, where is this gonna go? Because you're at some point it's gonna happen where you're gonna have to, so everyone's gonna know what happened basically. But we spend 70 minutes getting there, and then once we finally get to like where the reveal happens, I mean, we know, but the reveal to all the rest of the characters, then it's just like, okay, like that was the conclusion to like everything. I don't know. This film was frustrating. I understand that people are liking the absurdity of it. I think that a lot of the comedy was probably lost in the language or lost in translation, because this is a Spanish movie, and I think there are a lot of funny elements when it comes to that salesman, but I think he was overall like written a little bit better than the actual like kind of, I'm assuming there's some more subtle comedy throughout the course of the film that I missed. And I feel like that's where it kind of lost it for me.
Yeah, and going into that also, it's just like it kind of gets ridiculous at a point, because like you said, there's no way he's gonna be able to get out of this. It's just like, are you just gonna pretend the kid's asleep for the rest of his life, and then one day the mom's gonna be like, where's his head, and be like, oh, I don't know what happened, I put him to sleep and he was fine. Like, it's not gonna go that way. So we know it's gonna explode in his face, and when it gets there, it is one of the most explosive, like, oh, I totally forgot about this little girl and her weird side story within the movie, and just the fact that it ends up blowing up in his face after everything that we've also witnessed. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh. So that ending feels so grand with just like so much going on at once, but just like at the end of the day, I'm just like, this could have had such like much better results if just like he called the police right away. Like, I understand he was freaked out, didn't want to see his wife's reaction. I totally get that. But just like, at the end of the day, he could have become like a millionaire still at the end of the thing by suing the guy who told him it was unbreakable, suing the company, and the trauma that like they created with like him losing his baby. But, instead the movie goes in this wild direction where just like, spoilers, major spoilers, but pretty much everyone dies in the movie. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it was an absurdist comedy. There was some really funny elements to it that are absurd and very dark. It's a dark comedy, But when it comes to like the full enjoyment of that, of like the full runtime, I felt like it was lacking throughout. I would say probably like 80% of the movie for me.
Yeah.
But I think looking back on it now, I'm like, okay, that is kind of funny because it's just so absurd and dark. But yeah, like this definitely was a movie, and I know a lot of people were talking about it, and I don't know if I loved watching it. But yeah, like I'm glad I scratched off the list, because other people were talking about. I'm like so curious, like what happens in the coffee table? What is this crazy incident? I mean, James spoiled it there. If you hadn't seen it, I hope you had watched it before that.
Yeah, I'd say overall I'm glad I watched it. But yeah, it's like, you know, it's a movie that is intended to be like shown, like you see it and then it's like The Ring, you have to show someone else to see their reaction. But it's just like not everything that you're reacting to, it's the premise that's the most shocking. None of the visuals are really all that off-putting or shocking. I mean, some stuff is, if you're not like a horror fan. Like I said, movies like The Sadness like will like literally disturb, well, at least my eyes. But you know, stuff in this movie, like I'd say, will disturb the more casual goer. But if you've seen tons of horror films, like it'll still be shocking, but nothing too intense overall, I'd say. But yeah, it just feels like a movie that is intended for you to just like talk about and show amongst others. But you can get the same thing out of like a short film called Spider, I believe. I think it also stars Joel Edgerton, I believe he's in it. I think his brother directed the short film. But I remember when that came out like 2 decades ago, or maybe a decade and a half ago. Like I think you showed it to me, Blaise. But yeah, it was just like a movie where it's like, oh, you got to watch this short film, and it was messed up. It wasn't nearly as disturbing as this, but that's overall what just this feels. It's like sharing a meme, but downfall is it's a 90-minute meme.
Definitely, yeah. This is available on some streaming sites, but if you guys want to help support the show, check it out on Amazon and our affiliate link below.
Yeah, and if you haven't, be sure to smash that like button and hit that subscribe button to get all our latest notifications as well.
And we're available on all social media platforms. We each have our own Letterboxd, Instagram, TikTok, so on and so forth. I don't think you're on Blue Sky yet, but that is available as well. But anyways, guys, tune in next week for a brand new video.